Hi folks, in this video I'm going to be discussing my favourite Canary Island resorts and ranking them in order of preference. Now obviously there is going to be some personal preference here. What works for me as a resort may not be what works for you, so obviously I'm going to have to be as objective as I can. I'm going to have to list the pluses as well as the minuses of these resorts. So I'm going to rank my resorts in the following ways. Number one, yes, I'd absolutely love to go back. Number two, I'd go back, but there are a few issues there that you're not so keen on. Only if it was really, really cheap, and not if it was the last holiday resort on the planet. So anyway, let's crack on. Let's get this video done. So our first resort is Costa Adeje in Tenerife. Now this is a very popular resort and we were recommended by a local travel agent. It was a great family holiday as far as they were concerned, and we'd really enjoy it. Now the hotel we were given was quite away from the beach, and coming back to the hotel after a day down at the beach was a good uphill slog, so that wasn't ideal. Don't get me wrong, the beach at Costa Adeje is absolutely fantastic. Canary Island beach is really beautiful. Fantastic place to watch the sun go down as you sit at a bar or just sit on the beach while you're eating a meal, whatever. But overall, the resort itself wasn't particularly to our liking. You can't deny that Costa Adeje doesn't have things to do and lots of facilities. Fantastic number of restaurants, huge number of bars. You've got things like Siam Water Park, which is quite local, which is an ideal place for the kids to go to. You can easily get trips to one of the two zoos. You can head out from the marina on a dolphin or whale watching expedition. Yeah, it's good for families, very good if you like an alcoholic drink, but we found it a little bit charmless. Tenerife seems to have very little in the way of building control. It didn't have a nice feel to the resort in the way that, say, some of them do on Lanzarote. It wasn't particularly for us. And with that in mind, I'm going to put that in the only if it's cheap category. So our next stop is to Maspalomas in Gran Canaria. Now, unlike Costa Adeje, Maspalomas is pretty much flat, so if you have any kind of mobility issues, this is probably a better resort for you. Has a fantastic beach. There are bars and restaurants, even a small shopping centre. For nature lovers, there's a brackish lagoon, La Caracha, which has a lot of interesting bird species visiting it. Ideal for those people who are naturalists, and if you're a naturist, there's the sand dunes, which are often frequented by people who like to take their clothes off. There's also a botanical gardens to visit and several parks. Also, there's an entertainment complex with more bars and restaurants and a small fairground, but that's away from the beachfront itself. And that's possibly one of the reasons why I didn't really gel with Maspalomas, because everything was quite spread out. If you end up with a hotel away from the beachfront, everything is a good walk to get to it. Another negative against Maspalomas is the fact that it is miles and miles away from anywhere else on the island. Yes, you do have Playa del Ingles next door. However, Playa del Ingles would have gone in the no, I never want to go there, even if it was the last resort on the planet. So Maspalomas, where's that going to go? I think it goes in the yeah, okay, but category. So staying with Gran Canaria, our next resort on the list is the capital, Las Palmas. Now I've been to Las Palmas a couple of times, once as a day visitor and the other time we went there for a 3-day short break, which I'll put a link, whichever side it is, to that, and you can go and watch that video. As I say, this is the capital of Gran Canaria, a real mix, because it's a bit like having a city break and a beach holiday all in one. Now the number one thing to do in Las Palmas if you aren't sunning yourself on the beach is to head over to Vegeta, the old town, and you'll see some fantastic architecture. There's some great buildings to visit there as well. Cathedrals, museums, everything in there is pretty cool. Las Palmas is also home to the Canaries' biggest aquarium. I'll put a link to the video we did from there, which is a great tour of that facility. Yeah, there's loads to do in Las Palmas. There's a technology museum as well. Several beaches. You can sit and watch the surfers on one. Hundreds of bars and restaurants on the main promenade. It's pretty good for a holiday. It is quite hectic in the fact that it is a vibrant city. So you can imagine that it is going to be quite busy. So if you're after a really chilled out holiday, possibly isn't the ideal location. So Las Palmas, ideal if you're a foodie, somebody who loves history and museums and things like that. Also great if you just like lying on the beach and having a nice cold beer. Downsides? Well, there are a few downsides. We did see the most anti-tourist graffiti I've ever seen anywhere in any of the islands. There were a lot of homeless people, beggars on the street, so yes, there is definitely an issue there with accommodation, partially caused by tourism and the Spanish government's lack of kind of making sure that there's affordable housing for everybody, I guess. If you don't like that kind of issue spoiling your holiday, then perhaps pick a different resort. I like Las Palmas. I think it's a great place to visit. I'm certainly not bored with it, and there are a few places I still haven't seen while I'm there, so I'd go back. I think it's a go back, but Mrs. Out and About with Andy, less enthusiastic about it. Definitely, I think it's worth a look if you like a bit of culture as well as a bit of a beach holiday. Okay, next up is Morro, Jable, Handia in Fuerteventura. So you'll probably see it advertised as Handia, some things that advertise Morro, Jable, pretty much the same area, just one end of the strip to the other. If I was assessing these resorts on the beach alone, then Morro, Jable would be the number one place. The beach is absolutely stunning. Golden sands with turquoise waters, and that runs along the length of the coastline for miles and miles. It is simply stunning. For those who like to shop, there is a good variety of shops here too. I think the shops were better here than Caleta Fuste, which is another resort we've been to, which I'll mention later, and it has the usual weekly market. This resort does tend to cater for German tourists, so don't be surprised if you find Helmut on the beach with his helmet out, because there is a lot of naturists there. Another thing to think about with Morro Jable is if you are planning to spend more time in the Old Town end, I would pick a hotel that is at least halfway along the main strip, or perhaps at that end of the resort, because it is a good walk from one end to the other. We were lucky our hotel had a shuttle bus service, which we were able to take advantage of on several occasions. Otherwise, it's going to be quite expensive for taxis. With Morro Jable and Handia being at the bottom of the island, there is an issue of transportation. It does take a long time on the old transfer coach. Taxis and things like that are going to be expensive if you want to go to other resorts further north. So that's something to consider if you are thinking of visiting Fuerteventura. Of course, you could always hire a car, but again, that's an additional expense. So overall, how do I rate Morro Jable? Well, beautiful location, a fantastic resort. However, because of its difficulty getting about, that goes in the yes, I go back, but category. Our next resort stays in Fuerteventura, and that is Caleta Fuste. Now, the reason I've picked this one is this is our most visited location in the Canary Islands. I've been now 4 times, I think. It keeps popping back as being a good location for several reasons. Firstly, it's very, very close to the airport. Within half an hour, you could be at your hotel checking in or sitting with an ice cold beer. That's a great way to start your holiday. No hassle getting from the airport down to the resort. It's very close. Caleta is also a very tourist-focused resort. Yes, there are people who live there, but it is more of a resort built for tourists rather than somewhere, say like Las Palmas, which has been a capital, and then has had tourism thrust upon it. Because of that, you find very little anti-tourist talk here. It has a very chilled vibe to it, really relaxed. It's not as busy as Coral Echo, perfect for families and people who want to really relax and holiday. Don't get me wrong when I say it's quieter than the likes of Coral Echo. There are still plenty of bars and restaurants open on an evening. It isn't as bouncing as like Playa del Ingles or Costa Adeje or Las Americas in Tenerife or Gran Canaria. It isn't a party town really, but there are certainly plenty of places to visit on an evening. Food wise, you can find pretty much restaurants to suit any palate. Whether it's tapas or a Sunday roast, a curry or a kebab, somewhere in Caleta de Fuste, you'll find it. For those who love to shop in designer boutiques, you'll find Caleta de Fuste lacking in that department, although Puerto del Rosario is only a short bus ride away. And that's another plus point for Caleta de Fuste. Being central in the island, you can get to other parts of the island fairly easily, whether that's a trip to Coral Echo in the north, maybe you want to take the ferry to Lanzarote for the day, that's doable. Also, if you want to go to somewhere like Oasis Wildlife Park down in the south, again, that's possible because it's not too far away as it would have been if you'd been all the way up in Coral Echo. So whilst Caleta de Fuste may not have standout features, there are so many reasons to commend it. It's a bit like a jack of all trades, master of none situation. It's very good at being average. But the biggest plus for Caleta de Fuste is the fact that it is one of the cheapest places to visit on the Canary Islands. Caleta de Fuste has some of the cheapest accommodation. Yes, it's a bit basic. We've stayed in it before, down at the Castillo Beach Apartments. There are several other complexes, very, very similar, and they're super cheap to stay at. You get what you pay for. It is basic. I don't recommend going for the food there. I've seen reviews. People said it was pretty terrible. On the whole, if you want a holiday in the sun without spending too much money, Caleta de Fuste is a fantastic resort. Now, I'm going to put this in... I'm going to put it in yes, but we'd go back, and in fact we are due to go back in a few weeks time to Caleta de Fuste. Again, it's a super cheap holiday, and for me you can't get any better than Caleta de Fuste if you just want a cheap breakaway. So then, on to our final resort, and that is Costa Teguise in Lanzarote. Now, Costa Teguise wasn't my first experience of the Canary Islands, but it is one that left a lasting impression on me. Like Caleta de Fuste in Fuerteventura, Costa Teguise is a very laid-back resort. Very friendly local people there. Those who watch the channel regularly will know that I love an old town. So you might be surprised that I'd pick Costa Teguise, as Costa Teguise is only 50 years old. So why is it a favourite? Well, that's something to do with the great number of bars and restaurants we have there, offering really diverse range of foods. But there is something else about Lanzarote. Lanzarote has very strict building regulations, which means that no other island looks quite like Lanzarote. No buildings over 3 or 4 stories tall. Houses have to be painted white or beige. You're only allowed to paint your window frames and your doors green, blue, black or brown. This gives resorts a fantastic village feel and prevents huge sprawling developments. It's a complete contrast to the likes of Costa Adeje in Tenerife. Now I realise that is possibly one of the things that other people will dislike about Lanzarote is, well, it doesn't look like there's much here, but that's an intentional thing created by the Lanzarote government. What about Costa Teguise itself then? Well, that's not to say there's not a lot to do there. You'll find that the resort has several beaches. There's a fantastic huge beach, which is fantastic if you like windsurfing and things like that. There's also another small beach which is ideal for snorkeling. You've got a water park in Costa Teguise as well, and there's an aquarium too. Costa Teguise's location is also pretty good. It's not far from the airport, and it's served very well by buses and taxis. So if you want to pop down to Puerto del Carmen or to the capital Arrecife, that's just a short bus ride away, very affordable as well. We never struggled to get a taxi in town either to take us back to a hotel, because one of our hotels was a good way out of town. Ideal place for families, really chilled out place as well. Can't do anything other than recommend Costa Teguise. We think it's a very well-rounded resort, perfect for travellers with families, I say, and those just wanting a relaxing holiday. With that in mind, Costa Teguise goes straight in at the I'd love to go back, and I really would. So there you have it. That's me rating my favourite Canarian holiday resorts. I guess it's always a personal preference, as I say. If your main aim is to find somewhere that does a €1 pint as your top number one priority, then perhaps Costa Adeje may be the resort for you. But for me, I'm quite happy with Costa Teguise. So yes, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.